program that aims to help you understand and to become your loving self at KMET 1490 AM, ABC Radio News Live. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice at Encino, California. And I'm offering this program with my colleague, business partner, best friend and mentor, and everything else, all the above, Dr. Robert Jaffe, who's sitting here next to me. Would you care to join me forward?
I mean, am I sitting too far back?
You're sitting too far back.
Okay.
In this episode, thank you. We're talking about codependency, trauma, addictions, all impacting a relationship, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we just have an announcement to make that for those of you who just joined us, starting in mid-September, we're going to have only 1 hour of this show, which is going to be at 4 p.m. this hour. We hope that you continue to join us and to support us. And we hope that those friends of ours that they have been following us at 3 p.m., that they will continue to join us at 4 p.m. And we really need your support to continue this show, because everything we're providing here, it's for you. And we want your feedback. We want your participation. We want to hear from you. We are interested to know about your story and how what we're offering actually impacting you or not. Or do you know somebody that they can benefit from what we're offering here? So we thank you for your support, and there are many ways that you can get in touch with us. First of all is live here online at this program, 951-922-3532. That's 951-922-3532. Or if you wish to contact us privately, our informations are on the screen, and you can email us or phone us privately, and we're happy to join you and to offer you what you need the best that we can.
Absolutely. So thank you for that fine introduction. I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe, licensed marriage and family therapist and certified hypnotherapist. And so I'm here today with my business partner and my best friend, Dr. Mitra. And so today we're going to be talking about codependence and dysfunctional family systems, and trying to help people understand what the difference is between a dysfunctional family system and a healthy family system.
I was talking to a colleague yesterday, and she told me that she doesn't use the term codependency.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, she called it, a term. Let me see if I can find it. And we had to go back and forth with that, but she called it conflict avoidance.
Okay. Well, I think.
So I made a note about it because I want to discuss it with you. Conflict avoidance.
Yeah. So I want to say that William Shakespeare, I think most people are familiar with William, said that a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So we can call it a conflict avoidance. We can call it codependency. We can call it doesn't matter what we call it, really. It's a syndrome, and I think conflict avoidance is certainly a part of it for most people who struggle with it.
They're avoiding conflict by pleasing.
By people pleasing. But I think that there's also a lot more to it than just conflict avoidance. The book that I've been working out of in terms of our radio program is what I would call the Bible of codependence, and it's called Codependence: Healing the Human Condition, a New Paradigm for Helping Professionals and People in Recovery by Dr. Charles Whitfield. He also wrote another great book called Healing the Child Within. And so in this book, Dr. Whitfield actually gives us a number of different definitions of codependence. And how many definitions does he give? He gives 23 definitions of codependence. Right. Yeah. And I'm just going to read one right now. This is one that I like. It's called, it says codependence is a learned behavior which is expressed by dependencies on people and things outside the self. These dependencies include neglecting and diminishing one's own identity. The false self that emerges is often expressed through compulsive habits, addictions, and other disorders that further increase alienation from the person's true identity, fostering a sense of shame. So that's one definition. There's a lot in this definition.
Yes.
And the first part is a learned behavior expressed by dependencies on people and things outside the self. So dependency means that our first phase of life is dependency, right? We're born totally dependent. The only things that we can really do when we're born is our biological function of taking in nourishment through our sucking reflex and excreting through our bowels and through our urine. So those are pretty much the only things we can do. We also have the ability to communicate by crying. And that's about it. That's all we have to do. That's all we know how to do when we're born. So when we're born, we are totally dependent. And who are we dependent on? We're dependent on our caretakers. So in many cases, it's mom and dad, or mom and dad substitutes. Could be grandma and grandpa, whoever it is that's there in the caretaking role. And those people are responsible for taking care of us enough so that A, we don't die, and B, we begin to learn about ourselves and others in a healthy way and learn how to flourish rather than just in addition to surviving. So what does that mean, flourishing? It means that we can go beyond our biological needs, which is eating, drinking, excreting, and warmth and shelter. Those are the things that we need biologically. But to go beyond that involves emotions. And we are all totally vulnerable when we are born in terms of the emotions that are coming toward us. Let's say if our mother is depressed, and she acts in a depressed way, those depressing emotions will be felt by the baby. If the father has anger issues and he starts raising his voice or yelling, or worse yet, throwing things or hitting, those emotions will be felt by the baby. What the baby needs most of all is emotional and physical safety. Emotional safety means that the baby is treated very, very kindly,
right,
and lovingly. When the baby is treated kindly and lovingly, the baby begins to feel safe. And if that is carried on throughout the dependency stage, which lasts for several years, the baby is totally dependent. Usually around age from 3 to 5, the baby begins to be able to do more for themselves. And certainly for the first several years, the baby is physically and emotionally dependent. And if they're treated with love and kindness, they learn that they are safe in the world. And the more that we know that we are safe in the world, the more we are able to explore and take risks.
Exactly. I mean, that remind me of the book that you and I have received, called Mother Hunger by Kelly McDaniel. which talks about how that early nurturance, protection, and guidance that primarily is happening by mom's interaction with the infant, right, can create what you just explained.
Exactly.
Right. And, I'm really, fascinated by this book. See, to you and I, the content of this book, they're all familiar.
Well,
right?
This is what we do all day.
This is what we do all day. But I highly recommend this book to those that, they are becoming a mom, becoming a parent, right? Or they are struggling with a lifelong, emotional negativity about their family members, about their family, about their relationship, to understand how lack of nurturance, lack of protection, and lack of guidance that's so essential and vital to our surviving and a life in a good way, so that they can understand the root cause of it and hopefully do something for it. That means seeking therapy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So this book is very easily written. It's a very well, explained. It's easy to follow, easy to understand, easy to relate. And the name really suggests exactly what you just said.
Yes. Yes.
Mother hunger. So I have only been able to recommend this book to just a very few because I think they were at the place where they can understand this book and relate to it. But I highly recommend, reading books about how early part of our lives as the minute, when we are an infant all the way to age 5, how essential it is.
Right.
For us to be cared for, to be loved, to experience love, to feel connected, to feel safe. This is how we trust. This is how we learn to trust, and this is how we believe that we are lovable beings, so that in the future we don't face, what we are just describing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So thank you for that.
Sure.
And when you talk about believing and knowing that we are lovable beings, feeling lovable and feeling competent are the two areas that people need to negotiate as adults in order to move past survival mode and into flourishing mode. Lovability and competence. And many people have developed competence, but have not been able to develop lovability.
Right.
And so therefore they are very, very competent when it comes to business and when it comes to making money and acquiring possessions. But our society rewards that. And so it's easy to seek all self-esteem through our competence, but inside to feel very, very unsafe and insecure and not be able to attain the love that everybody needs.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So why that is and how codependency is part of that is why we're talking about that today. Because what happens is that the mother and the father, it's even more on the mother usually at the beginning,
Yes.
especially if the mother is breastfeeding. But both parents need to be on board with the way that the child is treated, and to make sure that the child is not frightened,
exactly,
or emotionally hurt. And that's the main job of the parent when the child is developing in those first few years.
Yes, we just got our notice of commercial break coming up. So we would like to invite you to please join us right after a few, short messages, and looking forward to seeing you back.
See you in a moment.
Welcome back. break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart to Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC Radio News Live. We're talking about an aspect of codependency in family dynamic. Am I correct, Dr. Jaffe?
Yes.
And we were talking about how many definitions there are for codependency, and basically where does it originate from, our infancy and our childhood. And we are just continuing with that discussion, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I've been working out of the book called Codependence, Healing the Human Condition by Charles Whitfield. It's a great book, published, I think, in the early 90s, but it's still very, very complete in terms of understanding the origin of codependence, how people become codependent, and also suggestions for healing codependence. In the book, he gives a lot of great information. And so what I want to do right now is I want to read two things that he wrote about codependence, and then we can talk about it. The first thing is the cause of codependence. And he says the cause of codependence is a wounding of the true self to such an extent that to survive it had to go into hiding most of the time, with the subsequent running of its life by the false or codependent self. What does that mean? The true self has to go into hiding. So what is our true self? And what we've done over the course of the time that we've been both on this program and on our previous podcast that we did for a couple of years is we talked a lot about the true self at the very beginning of the show. So here we defined our true self as that part of you that came into the world with a number of positive qualities. Okay, so the true self has all these positive qualities. What are these qualities? We come in open to new learning, and open to being treated in a loving way. We are open to that. We are sensitive to that. We feel other people's energy when we're born. We are affected by other people's voice tone. We are affected as we develop our sight. We can't see very well when we're born, but after a couple of months, we can see people. We're affected by their facial expression. We can actually see our mother's facial expression because when we're born, we can look into the mother's face if the mother is feeding us through a bottle or breast, and the mother is looking down at us, because our vision is pretty clear for about 6 inches to 9 inches away from the baby. So the baby is actually designed to drink in the mother's expression and the mother's gentle cooing and lovingness through the mother's expression and voice tone as the mother is feeding the baby. So
basically what you're talking about is the baby, as the baby is looking into mom's eyes, he or she is downloading. Everything that the mom feels, that the mom experiences,
yes,
the joy, the sorrow, the happiness, the confusion, the discomfort, the comfort. So everything that mom feels at the moment, the child downloads that
exactly
into his brain, which is such an absorbing state of life. It is it's just like a dry sponge. With every splash of water, the sponge shapes and forms and becomes bigger, and it will never go back to what it was before.
Oh, I like that description. I'm going to steal that from you.
Okay,
Sounds good. A dry sponge, yeah. So that's what happens. So the baby comes in, they're open. They also have the ability to be calm. In the past, and also to a large extent today, babies are often given a smack on the bottom, and the excuse for that, or the reason for that, depending on how you want to look at it,
It used to be.
Well, well, I'm saying it still is. Still is, I mean, it still happens. It's not as widespread as it used to be. but it used to be, the idea was that the baby is going to experience some pain, and that's going to draw in the breath of the baby so the baby can take their first breath. But now we realize that's unnecessary, and we don't need to upset the baby in order for the baby
For
to breathe.
babies,
Well,
for
well,
babies. My God.
I would bet my bottom dollar that you were given a smack and that I was given a
Probably,
smack.
I can
Yeah.
feel it now.
So, um, so that's another quality that each person comes in with.
So
Open.
you're a boy, you probably got it harder.
That's right. That's right. um, we also come in curious. So that's just a state of being that each baby is born with. We're born with curiosity. Our curiosity is part of our makeup as human beings. We are curious as human beings. That doesn't mean we all have the same curiosity or the same curiosity about the various things, but we all do have curiosity. We also come in with emotional availability, which means that we can connect emotionally with the people around us. So um, that means that emotional availability means that if someone is upset or angry or hurt or scared, we will feel those emotions. That's emotional availability. And we also come in with the ability to be connected to others through that emotional ability. We also come in not knowing how to lie. So when we come in, we are honest. And as we develop our views of things, we want to comment on what we see, hear, feel, think, and know. And so we say that in an honest way. And we are all honest when we come in, until and unless we discover that honesty has negative consequences, in which case then we learn to not be so honest. We all come in with the ability to be confident within ourselves, confident that we can be ourselves and that we can comment on the truth of what we see. We all have the ability, I'm not going to say all of us, the vast majority of us have the ability to be compassionate and understand that other people have feelings, and that we can feel along with them and we can comfort them. I have two granddaughters, and when one of them gets injured, the other one walks up to her and tries to comfort her. And they're born with that. Um, we all come in trusting that the world will give us what we need, and when we believe that it does, and it does until we discover otherwise. And also, we all come in as sexual beings, right? So we've learned recently that boys can actually have erections while they're still in utero, and girls can have lubrication possibly in utero, but it's been detected as early as just several days. So that's what goes on in terms of our loving, authentic, true self. So continuing with the definition here. Um, we said that the codependence, the true self, had to go into hiding most of the time, with the subsequent running of its life by the false or codependent self. Uh, so we're going to talk about that in a moment, but then he goes on to say, it is thus a disease of lost selfhood. And lost selfhood means that our loving, authentic, true self goes into hiding in order to survive in the world. And survival means that we need something, that we're still in a dependent state. We're not independent where we can go out and earn a living for ourselves, and we can fend for ourselves. We are still dependent on other people who know how to negotiate the world better than we do. So codependency begins with dependency, and if we are dependent on someone else, and that person doesn't take good care of us, we learn that we're unsafe, and therefore we have to adapt to that unsafety in a way that makes us able to survive in that environment. Um,
Such a fascinating, way of, I mean, that's the truth way of, looking at how early experiences in life sets the foundation for the rest of life.
yes.
And if that foundation is not set right and concrete and stable and straightforward, we just go in the direction that the foundation was built in
Mm-hmm.
an angle, which
Mm-hmm.
is always difficult to stand up and always difficult to feel strong because we feel like we're about to collapse at any time.
We're about to collapse at any time because we know that we can't take care of ourselves
Right.
yet.
Yet.
So then we have to rely on other people, and if the other people we're relying on are not creating physical and emotional safety for us, then we have to adapt to what they want and what they believe is right, rather than being self-referenced, where we can decide what's right for ourselves.
Yes. I actually have a client like that up to the time she met with me, she didn't know that she's a first class people pleaser,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and how this happened because of similar situations that we just described in her early life. And she decided, instead of becoming appreciative of what was going on around her, right? And recognize it and also feel safe within what was going on around her. Or, basically the treatment that she received uh, kind of subconsciously made her to become a pleaser of her parents in order to stay connected.
Mm-hmm.
And she grew up that way. She has a profound sense of guilt and shame
Mm-hmm.
and fear about confronting her parents for how they are interfering in her life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have such a profound loving control. I mean, their control is so loving that does not come across as being controlled.
Mm-hmm.
So she's married with two children, and she basically doesn't have a control over her life. Everything is run by her mother,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she feels like her mom is contributing so much to her life.
Mm-hmm.
And how would she say no to her? What
Mm-hmm.
a shame, what a guilty feeling if she wants to confront her mother when her mother is devoting her life to take care of her daughter and grandkids.
Right. Right. And so there's an expression, and it's an interesting expression, and that is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
Right. So the mother may have great intentions,
Yes.
and the mother may absolutely love her daughter, and the daughter may absolutely love her mother, but the good intentions that her mother has are misplaced, because with her controlling nature or attitude or behavior, she's telling her daughter, I know better than you what's in your best interest. And there may be listeners who are listening right now will say, well, maybe the mother does know better than she does.
And what would I do without my mother? I mean, how am I going to take care of my two kids when I have to go to work? I don't have money to pay for babysitting, or I don't trust anybody to take care of my kids.
Exactly, exactly.
So those are valid points.
Right, right. So what we say to that person is, the mother may know what's better for her in certain areas or under certain conditions, but the mother, if in order to give her daughter a sense of self-esteem, and to give her daughter a belief that she is wise within herself and can make good decisions for herself, um, fails when she tries to tell her daughter what is always in her best interest, because the issue is not whether she's right or not right. The issue is that she's giving her daughter the message that her daughter doesn't know well enough herself and can't make the decisions on her own, which then keeps her dependent on her mother. And also, her mother is not inside of her, so her mother, although she may be acting from her own good intentions, can't really know exactly the nuances of what her daughter feels and experiences, and
Yeah.
therefore can't always give her what her daughter needs.
It's sort of a, emotional disability, that the daughter is not able to understand herself, understand her qualities, understand the area that she needs to grow as a mature adult, as a mature mom, and believing that she's not capable of doing what her mom does for her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So, uh, so that basically her mother is giving her the message unintentionally that you are not adequate.
Right.
You can't take care of yourself. You need me to take care of you. And her daughter, wanting to be a dutiful daughter and also recognizing that her mother does love her, complies with her mother. And even though she may secretly disagree with her mother or want to do things differently than her mother suggests, she feels like if she does that, she is being a bad daughter. And so she can't tolerate the thoughts that she wants to say to her mother, I don't agree, or I'm going to do it differently. And when she even has those thoughts, she starts to feel guilty, as though she's a bad daughter for wanting to do things a way that's different than her
Than her
mother
mother.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to read out of the book is about uh, the wounding process that we're talking about now, which comes in the dependency stage, where the child gets wounded by the parent who may be acting as in a loving and caring way towards the child, but is unintentionally wounding the child in various ways. Um, that the way that it then manifests is that it comes out in various disorders later on in life. The disorders can actually be physical in nature. So when people have inside of themselves guilt, as your client does, for wanting to disagree with her mother and for wanting to be different than her mother, that guilt will manifest in one of three ways, or two of three ways, or three of three
Three of
ways,
three ways.
right?
Yeah.
One way is through the body.
Right.
So when we have guilt, and when we have guilt, and when that guilt is consistently going on inside of us, it can come out in physical illness.
So why don't we expand on this right after our commercial break?
Sounds good.
Right? We
Yep.
see you shortly in a few minutes. Please join us again.
Please stay with us, and we will learn more about this fascinating topic.
Welcome back to our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart to Heart program at KMET on 490 AM, ABC News Radio Live. We're talking about codependency and how it shapes what it does to us, what we can do for it with Dr. Robert Jaffe.
Yes. So where we left off before the break was that
how it negatively impacts us.
yes, how codependency negatively impacts us, and a lot of it comes from guilt. That the what we talked about was the origin of it usually is in childhood, and even early childhood, where the child feels as though they have to sometimes take care of the parent's feelings, and or the parent feels as though they need to impose their beliefs and their thoughts and feelings on the child.
Right.
And so the child feeling like they believe that the parent is acting in their best interest. and they're dependent on the parent for their survival, they adopt the belief that the parent is always knows best, and they feel bad if they disagree with the parent. Now, they may disagree with the parent and rebel, but often what happens is they comply with the parent, and as they grow up, they feel they substitute the parent for a significant other. So they look to the significant other to depend on emotionally, sometimes financially as well, uh, and and feel as though they are the child in the relationship. So uh, one way that the codependency has been talked about is it's been named the child within syndrome. That means that we have an adult, we have a parent part of us if we have children, but even if we don't have children, we were a child. So we still have a parent part of us, we have an adult part of us, and we have a child part of us. Um, those those parts of us are always inside of us. Then we don't actually have a physical adult, parent, adult, child, but we have a mental or psychological or emotional. Um, and the child within syndrome, which is also another way of expressing codependency, happens when our needs as a child were not fully met in our dependency stage, and we don't know that we can take over and be a good parent to that child. So if we become rebellious, or we decide we don't want to listen to either our parent in real life or the parent in our minds, we may develop feelings of guilt because we believe that our parent does love us and is actually acting in our best interest, and we are bad because we aren't listening to them, and we are rebelling.
Right.
And we don't recognize that what we're really trying to do is to break free and be our own authentic true selves. We see it as a negative about ourselves, that we're not listening or being obedient to the parent. That guilt then manifests in one of three ways. One is through physical illness. The second is through self-sabotage, where we do things that are against ourselves. And the third is we take our resentment and anger and we project it onto somebody close to us. So we look for faults in other people because inside we're blaming ourselves, and we're not aware that we're blaming ourselves. So the anger gets displaced onto other people.
As soon as we find something going on with the other person, and then we take that as an avenue to release our own, negativity, our own negative emotion.
Exactly.
Whether that person is relating to our negative emotion or not, that's an opportunity. So our mind looks for opportunity to release.
Right. So you know that you're struggling with codependence when you are experiencing emotional symptoms that are in your body. I have one client, and they are doing couples therapy, and every time they go in for couples therapy, his wife gets a bad stomach ache. She is not aware that she is creating the stomach ache. So therefore, if you don't believe that you're creating it, then what you do is you look for some other reason. And she doesn't want to believe that she's creating it because she sees herself as a victim of her husband's inability or unwillingness to take responsibility for what he's doing, whereas he has taken responsibility, and she still is struggling with her own her own taking responsibility for what's going on inside of her. She gets stomach aches. Many people get headaches. Many people get backaches. those are a few of the manifestations of the guilt that people who are codependent feel. And in addition, it also can actually lower our immune system.
Right.
So when we have unresolved guilt inside of our brain, it can lower our immune system, and therefore it makes us open to opportunistic infections. So a lot of times people who actually do get sick, they come down with a cold, they come down with the flu, other kinds of illnesses, colitis, sometimes ulcers, all of migraine headaches. These are manifestations of emotions or feelings. So this is blocked energy within them that creates these physical symptoms. And it is curable, but it is not curable if the person is utilizing projection and saying, I'm not doing this, it's being done to me. So recognizing that things are actually happening that you are responsible for, you are creating this, gives the opportunity for the person to become curious about what they're doing and learning how to stop those symptoms. And either that and or the person does a self-sabotaging behavior. Self-sabotaging behavior often comes out in the way of forgetting. So if the person says, I can't find my keys, or gee, I was supposed to have this appointment and I forgot the appointment. Those are self-sabotaging kinds of behaviors.
They are, I have, been reported of other form of self-sabotaging behavior. That one of them is, ignoring our responsibilities.
Ignoring,
postponing
right.
Things for later, procrastinating, things of importance,
right?
And, but ignoring what we are conscious about it actually is, to me, is very significant. We know, for example, that there is a task that we have to complete, and there is a deadline for it, and it is important, but we just ignore doing it. I mean, so we are in full awareness, right? We just decide, I don't want to do it.
Right.
I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it.
Right.
And then when the penalty comes in, we get upset, we get, sad, we think the whole world is against us, right? And then we react again, right?
Yeah. We're sometimes we block it out so effectively that we're surprised when it happens.
When it happens,
right?
Yes.
We block it out, and the reason that we block it out is because it's presenting us with something that seems too hard for us. That's a lot of why we procrastinate, is because we believe and we tell ourselves this is too hard for me to do.
And sometimes fear, causes that.
Well, yes, exactly. Believing that it's too hard to do is a fear.
It's a fear.
Yeah. It's a fear that there's something beyond me that I can't understand or can't negotiate.
Right.
And this is a very common thing that happens when people are struggling with codependence. And so what they do then is they rely on their partner to do things which they think are too hard for them. And these may be things that they need to do for themselves. For example, somebody may say to their partner, I need you to keep track of my prescriptions, and so I need you to recognize when I'm running out and then refill it and then get it filled for me.
Or I want you to take care of the bills. I don't want to focus on it.
The bills are another big one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then the partner, being also in a codependent state, agrees to do it, but the partner may then feel some resentment,
right,
because it's really not in the partner's. It's not what the partner is supposed to be doing. Each person in a relationship is supposed to be taking care of themselves. And if they need extra help, for example, if they get sick and they can't take care of themselves, then the partner can step in and help. But still, for the most part, each partner is supposed to be responsible for taking care of their own needs in the relationship.
Well, we know that historically this didn't happen. The woman was a stay-home mom and taking care of everything.
Well,
Cooking,
no.
cleaning, raising children.
Well, no. That's different than what I'm suggesting, because what I'm saying is that if you have an understanding, let's say if the man in the way that it used to be done, and still is to a large extent, but not as much, if the man is going out and making money, and the woman is staying home and taking care of the children in the house, that's a division of labor.
Yes.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, what I'm talking about.
Just want to clarify that part.
Yeah. No. What I'm talking about is if both people have their own tasks to do, which are contributing to the maintaining of the relationship, but each person is still responsible for themselves, and they choose not to be.
Yeah, we're talking about well-being here.
Well-being. Right.
Yes.
Right.
So there is a lot to say about codependency, its negative impact, and where and how far it can affect a person's life or a couple's life or our children. And and I'm glad we have this topic to discuss, because it's the #1 addiction in society, and it's so unnoticed, right?
It's unnoticed. It goes unnoticed, unidentified, and unfortunately untreated.
Yeah. So let's talk about this fascinating topic next week. We'll start at 3 p.m. with another episode of Human Sexuality, at 4 p.m. with Codependency, Trauma, and Addictions with myself and Dr. Robert Jaffe. And until then, don't forget that all you need is love.
All you need is love. Talk to you. We'll see you next week, and have a great weekend.
The preceding was a paid program.